Hey, you alright? Welcome to another video. If you haven't been here before, my name is Georgia Jo and this is my channel where I talk all things books. So today I thought I would go through the books that I read in July. I feel like I had quite a good reading month in July. I have also chose out a couple of the books that I read at the very end of June as well, just because I didn't film a video then. So yeah, I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 books physical, and then I've got a couple that I do have the physical books for but I just haven't pulled them out. So yeah, let's just get into it. These aren't really in any order, they're just in the order that I have stacked them here. So first up we have Taming 7 by Chloe Walsh. So I enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the series by Chloe Walsh. I don't know if it is the whole thing called, oh, The Boys of Tommen, that's what it's called, the Boys of Tommen series. I really loved Binding and Keeping 13. Saving 6 and Redeeming 6 I felt like were a bit too long, and because they are the story of so if you've not read the series, you've got Binding 13 and Keeping 13, which follow Shannon and Johnny. And then you have got Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, which follow Joey, who is Shannon's brother, and Aoife. But they are at the same time. It's the exact same, like, it's running parallel to Binding 13 and Keeping 13. So you kind of know the story, you know most things that are going to happen. You're just getting it from Joey's point of view rather than Shannon's. So I felt like it was just too long, I think, because I knew everything that was going to happen, you know. I didn't massively enjoy it. And then this one follows, I've forgotten her name now, Claire and Gibbsy. So Gibbsy is Johnny's best friend from the first one and Claire's Shannon's best friend from the first one. So I enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think if I was to read it again now, maybe I wouldn't give it that high, but I really like the characters on these books. I just feel so, like, you feel so invested in their life. I just really enjoyed them. I know this is such a popular series, so I don't really need to talk about it for ages, but I also read it at the end of June, so I don't really remember loads about it, which is a theme when it comes to these wrap-ups, which I always say I don't think I want to do these anymore, but then I want to talk about the books that I've read in the month and what I rated them, but I just don't remember. Anyway, let's just get on with it. So yeah, we've got Taming 7. I very much enjoyed it. I think this is Claire and Gibbsy's only book. I don't know who's getting a book next. Well, I'm assuming that there's going to be more in the series, but I don't know who. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just think I really love the characters in these books. They're very character driven rather than plot driven, I would say. So yeah, very much enjoyed, 4.5 stars. And then next up we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts, which I actually gave 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed Powerless, but this one fell a little bit flat for me. I don't know if it was the expectations of it that I had that made it, you know, it didn't quite live up to my expectations that I put onto it, or if it was just the book. I'm not sure. I think it was, I said this in one of the videos that I filmed, it's like a typical second, you know when you watch a trilogy of films and the second book is purely there as like a filler to sort of round off the first one and lead on to the third. I feel like that's what this book was. It was a very much a second book in a trilogy where not loads was happening. It felt like one really long scene to me, like it was one really long chase. That was the whole book pretty much. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily boring, but it just fell a little bit flat compared to what Powerless was. But I'm assuming it's going to lead on to Fearless, which is the third book, which is then going to, you know, round off the story and be maybe a bit more going on in the third book. So yeah, it was good for what it is, but it just wasn't, it didn't live up to what Powerless was for me. So yeah, it got 3.5 stars. And that is a very similar vein to A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, which is the next one that I read, which I also gave 3.5 stars to. I think this one again fell just a little bit flat. I really enjoyed The Dead Romantics and 7 Years Slip by this author. And this one, basically the main female lead goes into her sort of favorite books world, but it's in real life, but it's like that's what Ashley Poston books are, kind of magical realism. So it's in real life, but she gets stuck in this town, which the town is actually from her favorite book series. And that is such a cool concept. Like, imagine getting stuck in your favorite book, like how amazing. But I just think it wasn't quite, like, there could have been so much more with that concept, you know. And there's a romance in there which was just a bit like, didn't really make sense. It was kind of like a forced romance, I felt like. So yeah, it was okay, it was good. I think the concept is amazing, and the sort of world, you know, where you're thinking, wow, what was that like to live in the world of your favorite fictional world, if that makes sense. But yeah, it just wasn't what it could have been, you know. So that was a novel love story. And then next up we have got Night Shift by Annie Crown. This follows our two leads, who the female lead is like librarian's help. She's very sort of introverted and likes to just be in the library with the books, and the male lead is a college basketball star. So it was very much like she'll teach him to study and he'll teach her how to be a bit more extroverted, you know, a bit more confident. It was kind of that, which I think is a very cute sort of trope. But again, this one, I just wasn't a massive fan of it. I think what it is, it's a me problem. I'm the problem, it's me, because I think I'm just a little bit over these romances. I'm just not in the mood for them at the moment. So I think it was more a me issue. I did give it 3 stars because I really liked the fact that she was a reader and she spoke about tropes, and it spoke a lot about the miscommunication trope within stories that she doesn't like when she's reading. And yeah, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed that there wasn't miscommunication, or if there was, they sort of did communicate through it. Like, they figured out that they were being daft and they just needed to talk about it. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but it was just like a romance that's like does its job, you know. It was just there. So yeah, I gave that one 3 stars. Next up we've got the first one in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare, which is called City of Bones, which is the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So I actually only wanted to read this because I want to watch the series on Netflix, but I want to read it first before I watch it. So I started reading this. It's like a YA fantasy where Clary, our main female lead, has gone her whole 18 years of life not realising that magical beings exist. And then on her 18th, or around her 18th birthday, she starts to see magical things and all weird things happening. It turns out they actually do exist. And she has got the sight, which she shouldn't have because she was meant to be a mundane, which is a human. So yeah, it's kind of following them. And then you've got Jace, who is a shadow hunter, and his like friends around him, and he's kind of introducing her to that world, and a lot of other stuff's happening in it, but I don't want to ruin anything. So yeah, I gave it a 3 stars. I think I got a little bit bored whilst I was reading it, but I think that's just because it is YA. It is like a very young YA, I felt. But in saying that, it means it's very easy to read. Like, it flows quite well. It's you know, there's not too much brain power involved whilst reading it. I'm definitely going to carry on the series, but it just wasn't like my favourite first book in a series, you know. So yeah, I did give it 3 stars. Next up we've got the Kamigawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwa, and I enjoyed this book. So this is basically a Japanese book that's been translated into English, and it's just a really simple, lovely book to read that not really much is happening in it. So it's basically about a restaurant where a father and daughter are the sort of, I think he was the chef and she was like the front of house type thing, and you go there and they can create any kind of food dish that you have been wanting that you haven't been able to find anywhere. So it might have been something that like your mum made you when you were 10 and you've not been able to have it since, that type thing. So that's kind of what the story is. So yeah, it was a nice book to read. It was lovely. It's just not loads going on, but it was just there, you know. It's a nice little palette cleanser if you're in the middle of like reading a lot of romances and you need a, you know, a little break from them, or you're reading high stakes fantasy and you need something a bit more chilled. It's a good book for that. I gave it 3 stars. I think it's just a nice, like I say, just a lovely book to read that's not really loads going on with it. So yeah, that was the Kamigawa Food Detectives. And then next up we actually have a series, and I read all 3 books in the month of July. So we've got the first book, which is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, which I really enjoyed. I gave this book 4.25 stars, I think. Yeah, 4.25 stars. I read these at the very beginning of the month, so I can't completely remember what happened in them because I genuinely have the memory, like I have a memory of a sieve. I just don't remember. As soon as I've finished one book and I've picked up another, that first book has gone out of my mind. I don't remember anything about it. But I did enjoy this series. So the Magi had magical powers, and the king took all the magical powers away, made sort of magic disappear because he was scared of it, basically, because he didn't have it. And he was, you know, saw it as a threat because they could have defeated him. So he took all the magical powers away, killed all the Magi, and only left the Magi children because they wouldn't be able to do much without any of their elders there. So yeah, it's kind of following that and sort of their, you know, fight back to become equal again, rather than just getting murdered and they're sort of seen as like less than, you know. And they're easy to spot because they have this big white hair, which is the front of the book. Big white curly hair. So they're very easy to see that, you know, that's a Magi, but they don't have powers anymore. So it follows Zelly, who is our main female lead, and her brother Zane, I want to say he was called, and it's following them. And I don't really want to say much more than that because I don't want to ruin the story whatsoever, and I don't want to say something by accident and ruin the story, even though I can edit it out. So what am I talking about? Anyway, the first book, Children of Blood and Bone, I gave 4.25 stars to. The second book, which was this one, I believe, yeah, Children of Virtue and Vengeance, which I actually gave 4.5 stars to. So I really enjoyed this one more than the first one, but very close call, you know. I think probably maybe because the first one is this one's the first one, it's a lot bigger, so I think it's, you know, this one seemed to flow a lot, and then because it's not as big, you want in the next bit, you know. So yeah, that was Children of Virtue and Vengeance. And then the third one is Children of Anguish and Anarchy, which I actually gave 3.25 stars to. Didn't massively enjoy the third one in the series, but I would really recommend this series if you're looking for like a fantasy series. I would really recommend this. I really enjoyed it. Children of Anguish and Anarchy, it only came out recently. It came out this year, so yeah, I would definitely recommend this series. Also, the books are absolutely beautiful, but yeah, I would recommend it. Like I say, the second one was my favourite, but the third one by a long shot wasn't a bad book, not at all. I just maybe didn't enjoy it as the first two. So yeah, that was that series. And then next up we have Funny Story by Emily Henry, which I gave 4 stars to. I think this is only the second or maybe the third Emily Henry book that I've read. It's only the second one I've got on my shelf, but I think I've read another one called, like, I don't know, something about a book. I can't remember. I think I've read 3 though. I think this was the third one that I read by her. I can't really remember anything about this story, if I'm honest, because I read it at the end of June. I can't even remember the characters' names. Oh yeah, so it's following Daphne, who was meant to marry Peter, but Peter decided he was actually in love with his childhood best friend. So she ends up moving out of Peter's house, Peter's home, everything. He's owned everything. She's moved to a different city for him and stuff like that. So she ends up getting chucked out of her house, and she moves in with Miles, was he called? Yeah, Miles, who is actually Peter's childhood best friend's ex-boyfriend. Does that make sense? So Daphne and Miles were originally with 2 other people. Those 2 other people decided they wanted to be together, so Daphne moved in with Miles. Does that make sense? So they basically just sort of get each other through that like turbulent they got there eventually, turbulent time. And yeah, it's just following them too. It's a nice book. I really enjoy Emily Henry's writing. I think it's just really easy to follow, and she doesn't have a lot of like annoying tropes in there, like miscommunication, stuff like that. So yeah, very much enjoyed it. Gave it a 4 stars. I'll definitely be reading more of Emily Henry's stuff. But yeah, that was Funny Story. And then next up, we've got probably one of my favourite books I've read this month, and it was The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. I love Holly Jackson's writing. She's by far one of my favourite authors. 5 Survive was my first 5-star that I gave this year, and this one I've given 4.75 stars to. It was so good. So obviously by the title, it's about Rachel Price who has disappeared and then she reappears. I want to say it was like 16 years later. And her 2-year-old daughter was in the car with her when she disappeared. But obviously at 2 years old, she don't remember what happened to her mum. She's called Belle, the main lead, Annabelle, but she likes to go by Belle. And she was in the car when her mum disappeared, but obviously she doesn't know anything about it. And her whole life has been about her mum disappearing. You know, it got on the news and no one knew what happened to this woman, and then they decide to do a documentary on it. They don't necessarily all assume Rachel's dead, but also kind of do because it's been 16 years. But yeah, they do a documentary they want to start filming a documentary with Belle and her dad about Rachel's disappearance, and then all of a sudden Rachel reappears. And it's following them. You don't know who you're meant to trust, like where's she been for these 16 years. She says she was held captive, but she doesn't know who by, she doesn't know the person, she doesn't know where she's been, she doesn't know how she got out, she doesn't seem to know anything. And you're meant to, you know, it's one of those books where you don't know who you are meant to trust, and I felt like there was so many twists and turns that I just did not know what was going to happen next. I really enjoyed it. I was so invested in the story, and yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It was really good, and I've not seen a concept like that personally. I've not read a book about someone disappearing then reappearing. So yeah, very much enjoyed it. Gave it 4.75 stars. I would definitely recommend. I'd recommend reading anything Holly Jackson writes, to be honest. But yeah, that was The Reappearance of Rachel Price. And then next up we have got The Cat Who Solved 3 Murders by L.T. Shearer. This is the second book in a series. The first one's called The Cat Who Caught a Killer, and this is The Cat Who Solved 3 Murders. So this is about Conrad the cat, who is a lovely character, and he is a talking cat, but he will only talk in front of Lola. I want to say the female lead is called Lulu. I was close. Lulu. He'll only speak in front of Lulu because he thinks if he talks in front of other people, he'll end up being in a lab and being tested on, because he is a cat that talks. But yeah, he helps Lulu. Lulu is an ex-policewoman or ex-detective, which she obviously, she's an ex-one, she doesn't do that job anymore, but sometimes she can't help herself, and Conrad helps her solve 3 murders. So yeah, it's just a really nice sort of easy read about a talking cat. You know, I love the characters. Just a lovely read, very easy and simple. Like I say, not much brain power, you know, used for them, which is sometimes exactly what you need. So yeah, that was The Cat Who Solved 3 Murders. And then we have another couple of books that don't use much brain power. They were just really lovely books to read, and I really enjoyed the characters in these. I don't know if I said, but I gave The Cat Who Solved 3 Murders 3.5 stars. I don't know if I said that, but that's what I gave it. And then yeah, like I say, we've got 2 other books which are from the same series, and it is Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club. So we've got The Thursday Murder Club, which is the first one, and then A Man Who Died Twice, which is the second. So these are based in like a retirement village, and there's these 4 main older people. You have Joyce, who was a nurse. You've got Elizabeth, who you don't really know what she was, but a lot of people owe her a lot of favours, and she seems to have lived a life, but I'm not 100% sure what her job was. And then you have got Rob, I want to say he was called, who was like an activist and is very much will stand up for what he believes in. And then you have Ibrahim, who was a psychiatrist and is just a very cool, calm, collected and reserved character. So you're following those four whilst they decided to start the Thursday Murder Club, which is to solve or to try and look into cold cases to see if they can solve them, and then all of a sudden they get a real case to try and help solve. So it's following them, and it's very much, I think, if I remember rightly, the plot is really good. Like it was gripping, it kept me interested the whole time. I didn't know what was going to happen, but mainly I want to carry on reading this series for the characters. The characters are so good, so funny. I think they just remind me exactly of like older people. Like, it's so British as well. They are like British old people that sometimes they're saying some things and you're a bit like, ooh, you can't really say it, or you've worded that a bit. I understand it's good intentions, but you can't word it like that. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Where it's just a little bit too, you know, not PC enough. Some old people aren't for this day and age. So yeah, they're just very lovable characters and I really enjoyed reading them. I'm really looking forward to reading the others. I do have them. I actually bought all 4 books off Vinted, all in hardbacks. So you've got A Bullet That Missed, which is the 3rd one, and then The Last Devil to Die, which is the 4th, and I think that's the series done then. So there are only 4 books, but I would really recommend them. I really enjoyed these 2 books and I'm looking forward to reading the rest. The first book, The Thursday Murder Club, I gave 4 stars to, and the second one I gave 3.75 stars to. So yeah, they are the books that I've read this month. I've also read the 2nd Harry Potter, The Chamber of Secrets, and the 1st and 2nd Lord of the Rings. So you've got The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers. But I haven't rated those 3 books because I'm not really sure how to rate them, because I've seen the films like so many times, and the Harry Potter books I've read, I'm pretty certain I've read the first 5, but I feel like I have read all of them because I've got a distinct memory of being in an airport and picking up the last Harry Potter. So I must have read them, but I can't really remember reading them. But I feel like because I know the story so much and I've seen the film so many times, I'm not using any of my imagination, you know. I'm imagining the films. That's what I'm seeing in my head, is the actual films. So I find it hard to rate them because I already know everything that's going to happen, you know. Nothing is a surprise, nothing's shocking. I'm not on the edge of my seat. I just find them sort of like comfort reads because I know the characters. I can picture the characters. I can picture exactly what they're doing. You know, I've already actually watched the film, so I find it a bit difficult to rate them. I don't really know how to rate them because yeah, I know everything, but then you've also got the added sort of that they are nostalgic. You've got that added into it. So I just decided I'm not going to. So I marked them like I've read them. I put the dates in and stuff on my Goodreads and my story graph, but I haven't actually rated them, and I'm not going to because I just don't know how to. I don't know what to rate them, you know. So yeah, those are the books that I've read the end of June and also July. So I think we've got 17 books there in total, but 3 of them are the 2 Lord of the Rings and Chamber of Secrets. So yeah, that is the end of this wrap up. I feel like it's been a really long one. I feel like I've been talking for hours. I'm not really a fan of filming these wrap-ups because my memory just doesn't serve me well, and I feel like you're not really going to get much out of it because I don't talk about the books a lot other than my ratings, but I don't know how to incorporate them into another video, you know. Maybe I'll do a wrap-up and a TBR, like this month's wrap-up, next month's TBR in one video, so that at least you're getting something out of it. I don't know. Let me know if you have got any ideas. I would really appreciate it if you could let me know that, as I just don't know what's the best to do them, or if I'm just overthinking the whole thing and these wrap-ups are fine. Please let me know. I would really could do with some help. But yeah, that is the end of today's video. If you did enjoy and you would like to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. But other than that, I will see you in a bit.